Use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you, and I'll remind you to please switch it off once you've finished speaking. Before we begin the formal agenda, I'll ask the Executive Director to provide details of the evacuation procedure for those present.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Evening, everybody. There's no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, then please make your way out of the building, down the main staircase, out of the main doors of the Town Hall, and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park, and an officer will be there to give instructions on when it's safe to return to the building. Thank you.
Due to the lengthy agenda and the number of motions and possible amendments, I propose suspension of 13.6G and H of Part 3 of the Council's standing orders. This will result in no second vote being taken if an amended motion is carried. The amended carried motion will take the place of a substantive motion with no further vote being taken. Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor.
Apologies for absence. Are there any apologies, Executive Director? Could we please have a vote? Who would second the motion, Deputy Mayor? And can we have a vote, please? Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. We'll move on to apologies for absence. Are there any apologies, Executive Director?
Madam Mayor, I have apologies from Councillors Mrs Crane, Ellis, Mrs Garcia, Mahoney, Mrs Parker, Rabin and Slinger.
Item 2, to approve the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 26th of April 2022 and the annual meeting held on the 19th of May 2020. I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 26th of April 2022 and the annual meeting held on the 19th of May 2022 be approved and adopted. Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. Item 3, declarations of interest. Can I remind members that when they declare interest, they must also declare the general nature of that interest. Are there any declarations? Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item number 7E, my 3-year-old twin sons are both members of Rugby Gymnastics Club. And item number 1B on blue, I am an unpaid director of Rugby First.
Councillor Robbins, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 7G, a non-pecuniary interest in the event that I am a member of the Rotary Club of Rugby Dunsmore, which is mentioned in that particular part.
Thank you. Councillor Poole, did you have any? Not. Councillor Miss Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Same as Councillor Robbins, item 7G, by virtue of being a Rotarian.
Councillor Roodhouse.
7D as a Director of Health Watch Warwickshire.
Thank you. Councillor Picker.
Item 1B on blue as unpaid Director of Rugby First.
Councillor Edwards.
My work with voiceability and social care assessments.
Is that 8D?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Moran.
Item 8A, a non-pecuniary interest. I own a car park outside the town centre, but it's a non-pecuniary interest.
Did you say you own it?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Blue paper, I have a member of family that works for the council, and also on the notice of motion that I'm seconded as I work in the health service. non-pecuniary, both of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor
I'm also
Srivastava.
member of the Rugby Dunsmore Rotary Club, so
Thank
just
you.
want to declare this club.
Thank you. Is that everyone? Thank you very much. So under my mayoral announcements today, I'm delighted to share the news that the Council's planning team has won an award for its work at Holton. Together with colleagues at David Locke Associates and Urban and Civic, the team won the Best Project category at the Royal Town Planning Institute's West Midlands Awards for its work on Holton School. This comes on the back of another award that the team picked up a few weeks ago when it won Best Use of Heritage in Placemaking at the Planning Awards for the same project. The Holton School project restored the Grade 2 listed radio mast station, making it publicly accessible and creating a sustainable, distinctive and state-of-the-art school. The public-private partnership approach between our planning team, the developers and their agents has created an iconic education facility in the heart of the new community, on time and on budget. Well done to everyone involved. The Birmingham 2022 Queen's Baton Relay visited rugby last Thursday during its final journey through England. During its time in rugby, the relay visited Caldecott Park and Rugby School and experienced the community sports activities in Caldecott Park. Members of the public got involved with the activities and celebrations and lined the route as the baton made its way through Rugby Town Centre shortly after 3 p.m. And I would like to thank all the officers involved in supporting this tremendous event. I got to play a bit of tennis, which was wonderful. I would have loved to have a go at the archery, but there was no time. So following the success of this, and there was a number of activities for the summer 2022 that will take place to support our town centre. This success on the back of rugby's summertime last year. So we are very looking forward to the return of the outdoor cinema and the play day, and of course the fabulous Rugby on Sea. And I also have to say that today I attended the Green Flag Award ceremony, and I will wait until our next council meeting when officers do know how many awards. We were obviously nominated for many, but we scooped some great awards, so I'll wait to have that announced at the next meeting. But congratulations to those teams who stood by and hoped we would pick up those great awards again. Right, we move on to public question time. In accordance with council standing orders, a question has been received from a member of the public. Executive Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mrs Naomi Issett submitted a question asking the council to repeat its call for residents, schools, business and communities to install external defibrillators and to install new defibrillators in council-owned spaces. Mrs Issett also asked what actions the council is taking to identify and place new defibrillators across areas of high public footfall and council-owned spaces, including parking areas, public parks and leisure facilities. A copy of the question, together with a response from the Leisure and Wellbeing portfolio holder, has been published on the council's website and circulated to all members.
Questions pursuant to Standing Order 10. Are there any questions, Executive Director?
There are 7 questions this evening, Madam Mayor. All questions and responses have been circulated to all members prior to the meeting and have been published on the council's website. Question A is from Councillor Slinger. He submitted a question for the Leader of the Council, Councillor Lowe, relating to houses in multiple occupation and the use of powers available to the Council.
Councillor, do you have any supplementary question? Or Oh, sorry, we do have apologies from Councillor Slinger. Who do I call on? We can move on to question B at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This question is from Councillor Mystery. He submitted a question for the Leader of the Council, Councillor Lowe, asking why the Council has not yet made its allocation of Gypsy and Traveller residential pitches identified in the local plan, and when it is anticipated that will meet the target.
Councillor Mystery, do you have a supplementary question?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, question C is from Councillor Roodhouse. He submitted a question for the Communities Homes Digital and Communications Portfolio Holder, Councillor Mrs Crane, and is asking for confirmation of the current status of Rugby's local strategic partnership.
Councillor Lowe. Councillor Roodhouse. Councillor Roodhouse, do you have a supplementary question? Oh, sorry.
Madam Mayor, we have question E, and that is also from Councillor Roodhouse, and it's a question for the Operations and Traded Services Portfolio Holder, Councillor Miss Lawrence, requesting confirmation of a number of matters in relation to grass cutting within the borough.
Councillor, do you have any supplementary questions?
Madam Mayor, question E, which is also from Councillor Roodhouse, and this time it's a question for the Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Poole, asking how many rat reports the Pest Control Officer has dealt with over a 12-month period, and if this was increasing.
Councillor Roodhouse. Councillor Roodhouse, do you have any supplementary questions? That's it. That's it. We move on. Is that the last one?
Madam Mayor, question F is from Councillor Mystery. He submitted a question for the Leader of the Council, Councillor Lowe, asking if a developer has been contracted to develop the Rounds Garden site, and if so, to identify them.
Councillor Mystery, do you have any supplementary question?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the final question for the evening, question G, is from Councillor Mrs Brown. She submitted a question for the Leader of the Council, Councillor Lowe, asking what, if any, plans the Council had to integrate the redevelopment of Rounds Garden site with the future redevelopment of Cemex and other town centre sites.
Councillor Brown, do you have any supplementary question?
No, I don't, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. To receive the report of Cabinet dated 27th of June 2022. 6A. In submitting the report to Cabinet, if members wish to raise questions or to comment, will they please indicate they wish to do so when I call the item? Councillor Miss Robbins, will you move the confirmation adoption of item 1 on the report of Cabinet of 27th of June 2022?
Madam Mayor, I so move.
Get this one. Yeah. Finance and Performance Monitoring 2021-2022, year end. May I call on speakers? No speakers. Okay. Councillor Miss Robbins, have you any questions that you were sent by email or any replies you'd like to give?
No, Madam Mayor, there was nothing, and I have nothing further to add than what I gave at Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you. I now submit for confirmation and adoption the whole of the report. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. To receive the report of officers. Item 7, to receive report of the Executive Director set out as item 7A on the agenda. The report concerns the Council's transformation programme and corporate strategy delivery plan for 2022-23. Councillor Lowe, will you move the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I will move the report and reserve my right to speak.
Who will second the motion?
Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Do we have any speakers? Councillor Lowe. Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No doubt we'll get through it all at some stage tonight. Just a couple of comments, really, and I'll refer to most of the item 7s because they sort of run into each other through the delivery plan and the transformation programme. So it's a general comment all wrapped up into one. It's quite pleasing to see the document here and it laid out in front of us, and the data finance officer as well, which is a key element, I think, in what will be developing performance indicators and bringing that information forward, because that's certainly been, in my view, an area that needs to be developed. And I'm not sure when we will get onto Power BI, but hopefully at some stage we will move that way, because I think there are some key elements around performance that as elected members that we need to be able to track. I think we now have the shape of a plan coming forward in what is going to happen. The element around the corporate strategy, which I think is, which I would ask the leader to give some thought towards, is it's great to see the timescales and some of the points around the heads of service and everybody that are going to be delivering that. But the missing element for me really is around which portfolios they actually relate to and how that will work with the portfolio holders at the same time. So there is some accountability and transparency to all elected members as to where to go to and who to talk to and where that's going through. So I would hope within the next reiteration of all these documents that we could actually slot in the portfolio holders against that, because that then would actually give us some greater accountability and transformation. And likewise, I might as well wrap it all up now, within the transformation board as well, that I'd like to see some greater visibility within that against the whole system, which then does beg the question about scrutiny and how scrutiny is going to handle this particular work going forward. And I do think there needs to be some discussions around that. And I think if we look down the agenda, we come to the town centre task and finish groups that actually worked, I thought, quite effectively. I didn't serve on one, but the actual feedback I had was that they were effective, they allowed debate, and they were time limited. So they're quick, sharp, and to the point, which I think is what we were all after. And I think, therefore, we probably do need to give some thought towards in relation to the monitoring of the transformation and the corporate delivery as well, of actually wrapping that into that, because these documents all do basically merge into one system at that point. So hopefully we'll be able to go down that particular route and actually start doing that. And thank you very much.
Have we any speakers? Councillor Livesey.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to ask, it's encouraging to see we have got success measures in this document, but will there be any detailed KPIs coming forward for each of those success measures? Because at the moment, they don't really mean very much as they're currently described.
Councillor Liu? Oh, sorry. Councillor Moran?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to speak in relation to item 7I, the review of taxi licensing fees. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is that okay for me to speak? Okay. Yeah, I really sort of echo everything that's already been said. I think, you know, there's a lot of work gone into the reports. There's some good stuff in there, but it is really about how we sort of measure where we are now and how we're moving on in the future. And I have been told that there is a lot of work happening with that. But so I suppose what I'd ask you is, how quickly will that happen? And will it be, you know, something that we'll be reporting on, as Councillor Roodhouse has already said? Will it be something that we're reporting on a regular basis to scrutiny? Because I think otherwise, I mean, it gives us direction as a council. You know, we've got the evidence and, you know, we're acting on that instead of being speculative, as sometimes these things can be when we get into task and finish groups. So I would like to know when that is coming forward, but and also recognise that there's been a lot of hard work done there. But I think we just need to do the final bit now and tie it down with some nice, tight KPIs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I must say I'm very encouraged by that discussion, because I don't think I heard anything from anyone that I disagreed with. I mean, I'll just address some of the points that were made briefly. I've actually written a speech, but I'm not going to bother reading the speech. I'm just going to address the point. I think that's more appropriate. I mean, Councillor Roodhouse and Councillor Livesey and Councillor O'Rourke, you all made a really, really good point around KPIs, and absolutely, I agree. I know it's a drum that you've been banging for a while, Councillor Roodhouse. There's no point having these lofty ambitions if our success in achieving those lofty ambitions cannot be quantified, monitored and measured. That's a phrase from one of my latest speeches, just a little heads up for you. It's got to be quantified, monitored and measured. So yeah, absolutely, I can give you the comfort that you're looking for around that point. And I'd also like to pick up on the point that Councillor Roodhouse made around the town centre working parties. I would agree. I chaired the one on the markets. I thought it was excellent, very constructive, very useful and moved at pace. And I think, dare I say it, that has probably set the standard for how we should operate at a council on a working party basis going forward. I think I've picked up all the points, but if anyone thinks I've missed anything, please shout out now. Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, we'll do that for you as well. No problem. Thank you.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Executive Director set out at item 7B of the agenda. The report concerns the delivery of the corporate strategy for 2021-2022. Councillor Lowe, will you move the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I will move the report.
Who will second the motion?
Mayor, I'll second the motion, reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Any speakers? Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, when we adopted our new corporate strategy for this council, we all quite rightly felt it appropriate that progress towards achieving our stated aims be clearly measurable, and that regular updates on this progress should be provided to members and to the public. This report constitutes the first such update and sets out what has been achieved over the course of the recently concluded municipal year. To reiterate what it says in the strategy itself and in this report, our strategy has been designed to ensure that we meet our environmental, economic, health and well-being and organisational commitments. To ensure, in other words, that this council delivers what our residents and communities need. As members will be aware, the past year has seen our Climate Emergency Working Group focus on the development of our climate strategy and action plan. Whilst inevitably this was always going to be a long process, alongside that work, we've also made significant progress towards our broader environmental aims. We've established a dedicated climate reserve within our HRA budget. We've acquired £507,000 worth of grant funding from the Midlands Energy Hub to enable us to improve the energy efficiency of our social housing. We've installed our first on-street publicly available electric vehicle charging points. I'm also pleased to report that we've begun work on a climate change and sustainable construction supplementary planning documents, which will enable us to ensure that we are able to hold developers to account, to ensure they meet their own environmental responsibilities in this borough. We're also now developing a new air quality action plan, and the climate change strategy, as we all know, will shortly be adopted. Important though our environmental aims are, it's equally important that we recognise that neither they nor any of our other aims will be achieved without the support of a resilient local economy to fund them. In these current challenging times, this is still more vital, and I'm therefore pleased to report that the past year has seen this council make huge progress on our town centre spatial strategy, which will be finalised before the end of this year, and which will be the catalyst for a once-in-a-century transformation of the centre of Rugby. We have commenced work on the development of an economic strategy which will lay the foundations for future prosperity in this borough. And we've created a new major projects and economic development team within the growth and investment portfolio. dedicated solely to attracting inward investment and providing support to businesses. Now, of course, the defining event of our era has been the COVID-19 pandemic, and I am delighted to report that this council was both faster and more effective at channeling much needed support to local businesses than virtually any other local authority in the country, protecting jobs and helping businesses to keep the lights on. From a well-being and community perspective, high up on the list of highlights must be the work that has been done on the redevelopment of Byart Place and Rounds Gardens, both for the quality of the work which has been undertaken in ensuring that poor quality and frankly undesirable social housing is to be replaced by homes to be proud of, but also the success that this council has had in securing external funding to support this development activity. Substantial progress has now been made in reducing our housing waiting list, and we are also piloting area action plans to ensure that support is tailored to the needs of residents where it's most needed. Finally, from an organisational perspective, I've already spoken, we've all spoken in fact, about some of the excellent work this council has been undertaking on the previous item, but it is worth reiterating the huge progress that this council has made on its journey towards transformation, ensuring that we are a more efficient and cost-effective organisation, taking our stewardship of taxpayers' money seriously whilst ensuring that we are effective in meeting the needs of those we serve. I would like to place on record my huge and heartfelt thanks to each and every one of this council's employees, and to conclude by making the point that whilst transformation is, by its very nature, a series of changes to systems and processes, adoption of the changes themselves is only the first step. It is only by winning the hearts and minds of the people affected by these changes, our workforce, that the changes will take hold and deliver what is necessary. And I'm very proud to say that this is what is happening. And I salute our workforce for the commitment they have shown in delivering a council which is fit for the future.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Executive Director set out in item C of the agenda, together with a supplementary report which has been circulated to all members and published on the Council's website. The report concerns the Levelling Up, Devolution Deal and the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Councillor Lowe, will you move the revised recommendation in the supplementary report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I so move.
Who will second the motion?
Madam Mayor, I second the motion and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Can I call on speakers, please? Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy Christmas is the report, isn't it? With the lights. Coming back to the actual shared prosperity fund and the rest of it and the work for elected members and groups, I welcome some of that work that we're going to do around this. The key part, I think, around the whole, I don't know what it'll be called after September the 5th, who knows if it's still around. But whatever the funds are or whatever's coming down, I think the key bit will be about that partnership working and how we work that with others to actually make sure that we can actually deliver that on the ground. And I suppose it comes back to the comments made at the beginning, really, about, you know, what's that accountability and how do we actually progress that. But I think the actual work doing that within the groups and coming back through is yet another example of how we could work as a council and a local authority, but along with task and finish groups in a time-limited way. And talking of time limited, I can't remember in the report, and I haven't got my computer open, whether it does actually have a time limit to it to actually report back to the Executive Director and others on what findings you would like to see or any of that particular comments. And happy Christmas.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, happy Christmas, hopefully. I've looked at the report and, I mean, my comment would be it's a very tight turnaround in terms of the return of the 2nd of August, and we are being told, obviously in the supplementary, that there will be time for us then to actually do the work that we will do. But I suppose I'm really into the detail of that, and I'd really appreciate, as soon as possible, a good paper briefing on how that's actually going to work, who's leading it, when it's going to happen. And I mean, I certainly know that my group absolutely really recognise how important it is in terms of some of the sort of social deprivation, health inequalities in the wards that we represent. So we really welcome the opportunity to sort of work with officers to identify those objectives. And you know, I think it's sometimes a bit trickier for us councillors representing the urban wards, where a lot of these sort of country areas, they have, you know, formed sort of parish councils that have been doing the job for a long time. It's a lot more difficult to get it right in the sort of urban areas and doing the right thing. So I also would really like some assurance that when we come back with the stuff that we think we need to be looking at, that we can also bring in some of the stakeholders that we identify, that we work with already in our wards, to make sure that we're actually not speculating again about what we think people need, that we're actually doing the right thing and we're engaging in a meaningful way with the communities that we represent. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you all. So for the second time tonight, I've prepared a speech which I'm not going to deliver. And also, for the second time tonight, I find myself in agreement with the comments that have been made. We're having a remarkably collegiate meeting so far this evening. I mean, I think just to summarise, or just to be clear in terms of our shared understanding, the point's been made by both Councillor Roothouse, Councillor O'Rourke, that partnership working is key to making a success of this. And yes, that is absolutely correct. You know, there's numerous examples of us putting the kind of wheels in motion that we need to make that happen. Not least the meetings that we've had across Warwickshire with various different bodies to talk about what our ask is going to be. But there's a more fundamental principle at stake here, which is that there's no individual who is ever going to have the monopoly on good ideas. And I would very actively encourage every councillor in this room, every resident who's watching, if there's more than 5 residents watching, I'd be surprised, but perhaps you can tell them as councillors, all of our residents, all of our stakeholders to get involved and to give us a sense of what the asks are. And I think what we might find, as we did with the Town Centre Working Party, is that actually there was a huge amount of common ground, and actually there was a huge amount of agreement in terms of what we wanted to do. Because I do think that this council is at its very best when it operates together, when it does things together. And I invite you all, warmly and wholeheartedly, to either through your group leaders or directly with me or directly to the executive director, whatever you're more comfortable with, to make your views known. Just to pick up on Councillor O'Rourke's point, I think it would be a prudent idea to circulate some kind of briefing note on the procedures, so I will arrange for that to take place immediately. And other than that, thank you all for your comments.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Growth and Investment, set out in item 7D of the agenda. The report concerns proposed additional resources for major projects and the economic development function. Councillor Picker, will you move the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I so move and reserve my right to speak.
Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
I call on any speakers. Councillor Picker.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and it is a genuine pleasure to move this report. We've already started discussing some of the ambitions that we have for the town centre, for the borough as a whole, and for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. This report and the additional management that it provides and the additional officer resource will enable us to achieve those goals, so I really hope you will all support it. It will help us deliver on our corporate strategy, and it will provide a dedicated resource for our businesses in the town centre to approach an officer and help us develop the themes and the branding that we want to do moving forwards, a lot of which has already been discussed through the town centre working groups, and I'm confident will continue to be discussed as we go forward. Finally, I'm particularly pleased to highlight that the report will enable us to attract further outside funding. That was something that I know all of us, whatever side of the chamber we sit on, feel very strongly about. I think it was more or less the first conversation I had with officers. So it is great to hear that, and I'd also like to thank Nicola Smith for the work she's done to put this together. So I hope you'll all join me in voting for it. Thank you.
May I just hand to the Executive Director?
Madam Mayor, I can confirm that the recommendation is correct. That's asking for the funding for the next year. Madam Mayor, I can see there's a typo in recommendation 5. Thank you, Councillor Brown. It should say 23-24.
Thank you, Executive Director. We shall make that error amended. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Lowe.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I'd just like to echo the comments made by Councillor Picker around external funding. I think if we're being honest, it's something that if you went back a few years, this council wasn't particularly good at. And I think if you look at numerous examples from the reports before us tonight, I think we can safely say that we've changed it and we're continuing to change it. This is a fantastic news story, and I commend Councillor Picker, his predecessor Councillor Simpson-Vince, and the Chief Officer Nicola Smith.
Councillor Picker, do you want to reply? Nope. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Leisure and Wellbeing, set out at item 7E of the agenda. The report concerns section 106 and grant funding for Rugby Gymnastics Club. Councillor Poole, will you move the report?
Madam Mayor. Yes, Madam Mayor, I so move.
Who will second the report?
I will, Madam Mayor.
Are there any speakers? Councillor Poole.
Madam Mayor, I'll move the report as printed.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer of Communities and Homes, set out at item 7F of the agenda. The report concerns a grant allocation from Homes England for the former Bayard Place site. Councillor Lowe, will you move the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I will move the report and reserve my right to speak.
Who will second the motion?
I second the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, it's already felt like quite a long night already, although a fairly collegiate one, so I won't speak for long on this, as clearly this report is both very positive and totally self-explanatory. I am delighted to be able to report that the Council has been successful in securing £6.8 million in funding from Homes England to support the redevelopment of the former Bayard Place site, and that we're working with Wilmot Dixon on achieving practical completion of the site by February 2025. As has already been stated, this is hugely positive, both because of the way in which we will be replacing undesirable and unsustainable homes with pleasant and sustainable communities and 100% social housing as well. And also because it demonstrates the success this council has had in securing significant external funding in a competitive process. So I'm delighted to move this report as written in the portfolio holder's absence.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Regulation and Safety, set out at item 7I of the agenda. The report concerns a review of taxi licensing fees. Oh, sorry, have I? I'm so sorry. May I go back to the next item at 7G on the agenda? The Chief Officer for Growth and Investment set out the report concerns an upgrade with regard to the town centre working parties. Councillor Picker, will you move the report?
Madam Mayor, I so move and reserve my right to speak.
Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Are there any speakers? Oh, Councillor Robbins.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would just like to put forward my thanks to all the people who were on the events working party. And could I just make a small point that it states that it is rugby Rotary Club, but it isn't, it's actually Rugby Dunsmore Rotary Club, and I think that's very important that it is accurate. I would like to thank the members of the town centre premises who came to the events working party for their input, which was absolutely invaluable. I'm so pleased to see that we're putting some more money into the Christmas lights, because that was one of the items which was absolutely evident in our working party that was needed and that people wanted. We want to see a good display this Christmas. We want to show just what rugby can do. I'd like to thank the officers as well, because their input to the working parties, particularly Tom Kittendorf, was absolutely essential, and he managed to keep everybody in order. I think the whole aspect of these working parties for the town centre were excellent, and I'm hoping to see the good side of it all coming forth in the near future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Executive Director, could we make that amendment that Rugby Dunsmore Rotary Club be recognised?
I can confirm we'll do that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Picker? Oh, sorry, any more speakers? Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of points. I'll refer to the comments I made earlier about these working parties and how they worked, and there did seem to be a good way of progressing everything. And I suppose the point from it now, though, is what are the outcomes and how those are managed and how we see those coming through and through Cabinet as well. And I think, if we can get sort of greater transparency or some sort of, policy or something around that helps to see that and how that progresses and how we manage that extra bit of scrutiny and hold into account, I think would be useful. That's the bit from the report that wasn't quite clear to me, that you could see all the good work coming out, the medium and long-term stuff, but actually then what's the process from that? Is it back into Cabinet and the portfolio holders and then out back in Cabinet reports, or via scrutiny to develop policy on those elements as well? So I think there may need to be a bit of thought around those to make sure how do we keep track of that. Certainly, as Councillor Lowe has indicated, as we move to the town centre regeneration and some of the bigger projects coming on down the line as well.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I also thank the members of the Public Realm Working Group, and particularly the amount of work and effort that was put in by Chief Officer Tom Kittendorf into that. Can I also ask for a slight amendment? In the papers that go with this, it refers to the Caldercut Music Festival. It was the Rugby Rotary Dunsmore Music Festival, not Rugby Borough Council's Music Festival. It's a small point, but it makes a big difference. Thank you.
Understandably. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Executive Director, can we make those amendments?
Madam Mayor, I confirm that we'll do that.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I was on the Public Realm Working Party, and I think members did express some concern about the condition of the Winter Festival lights, which I would concur with Councillor Robbins, do need some serious attention. And of course, we would like to see those lights extended into some parts of the town centre where they're not covered. For example, Regent Place, Chestnuts Field. So you have a full circuit of lights rather than stopping at the alley in Regent Street, which is what they do at the moment. So, and in terms of the town centre, I think the retailers will see that we're making a real effort to include them all into the future economic success, and perhaps not being too overly worried about putting pretty lights on the town hall.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just really to echo what's been said already, I mean, I'm particularly passionate about this area because I'm a town centre councillor and I shop in the town centre. You know, I go in there every week, at least 2 or 3 times. And I think it's good that we've been seen as a council responding to some of the concerns that we all know have been raised. So I feel that's really positive. But like Councillor Roothouse has already said, again, I think it's really important. For me, I would like to be kept updated and briefed about what's happening and when it's happening, you know, so that I, as a councillor in the area, like you would if it was a parish council, I know we haven't got a town council, but if we've got a town council, we'd know about everything. But like parish councils know about what's going on in their area, I think it's only fair that we, as town councillors, have a good briefing about what is going on, because it affects our residents that live in the town centre area. So that's, you know, very good work and it's all going in the right direction. But yes, we'd like to be kept updated on a regular basis, please.
Councillor Brown. Fair enough. Councillor Picker.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I think, much like Councillor Lowe earlier, I did have a nice long speech prepared, but I'll perhaps touch on a couple of points and then on the points that have been raised. So firstly, just if I could have a brief indulgence, we've thanked a lot of officers this evening. There is one group of officers that I'd like to thank for managing to pull all this together, and that's the Democratic Services team. Because when we approved this in the June Council, we set a very ambitious time frame to pull together a number of working groups, 5 in total, to meet up to 4 or 5 times. I know that was a heck of a challenge for them, so I'd like to just place on record our thanks for that. Coming to the report itself, again, I'd like to, as others have done, thank everyone who took part. I think it's shown that we all really agree on a lot of the fundamental things that we want to deliver for the town centre. We want to engage with the businesses, with our shared stakeholders. I know that a number were invited. As the report sets out, it builds on the conversations that we started having with businesses in April as at a business breakfast. If I don't trip over my words. That's something that I would like to continue doing, that we continue to build the engagement with those who are actually working and soon, based on some planning decisions, living in the town centre. In terms of the comments from Councillor Roothouse and Councillor Mrs O'Rourke regarding where we go from here, so a lot of the discussions that we had through these working groups are going to feed into the UK Shared Prosperity Funding, as has already been indicated. After that plan is submitted on the 1st of August, we'll develop a strategy for council engagement and wider stakeholder engagement. I think the thing that I want to emphasise is these working groups are the beginning of the process. It's short and medium term interventions that will then build into the town centre spatial strategy later this year. So this is very much the start. It's not the finish, and I hope you'll all support the recommendations.
Thank you. Could we, Executive Director, place on record Democratic Services the thanks from Councillor Picker?
I can confirm that, Madam Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Digital and Communications, set out at item 7H of the agenda. The report concerns a proposed IT and digital services strategy. Councillor Lowe, will you move the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I so move and reserve my right to speak.
Who will second the motion?
Mayor, I'll second the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Roothouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Anyway, just a couple of quick points, really, and it's only come to light to me over the last few weeks around this with particular casework that I've been dealing with, and it just refers back to, really, that not everybody's digital, and there's a digital divide which is actually getting harder in some cases. You know, no mobile phones, no access to computers, nothing. And what's happened is that I found as an elected member, I can get that information, but it's not always accessible to be clearly downloaded with clear processes or leaflets which can be done. So I suppose, and I'm asking this elsewhere as well, is can I ask that we actually do some serious testing of systems in this way with customers to actually make sure that that digital divide can be breached. And I think all elected members will be asked at some stage, can you get me information about this, or can I be dealing with this? Can you go to our website? They didn't mention website, that was a bad thing. But can we go there and actually download or get something off or print it off, take it to that resident, and it's very clear what's happening in there. And that, and I would hope that we'd be testing that with customers out there to do that. But it does concern me increasingly that the divide is, if you like, not getting bigger, it's getting smaller, but it's getting harder and harder because everybody's being asked now to either do stuff online or put this in. And I was with some 85-year-old couples the other day, and they just they don't have a mobile phone, don't even know what a computer is really, and all the rest of it. And I was having to guide them through a process, otherwise, not quite the bailiffs, but it was going down that particular route of going in. So that's just a plea really, and using this item to actually put that plea in. Thank you.
Councillor Livesey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And partly to echo what Councillor Roodhouse has just said, I was quite disappointed to read this report and find that there was very little mention of digitally excluded residents in it. I think it's mentioned in passing in the Equalities Impact Assessment. I did used to work in that area, and I think it's really important that we take account of the needs of those residents and look at not only what we can do to provide things in an alternative format for them, but also what we can do to help them actually get the skills that they need to be able to use computers and so on. So that's it.
Councillor O'Rourke.
I mean, just to say as well, there's a lot of work already being done around digital exclusion by the county and the Public Health Department. And we already know, particularly, there are certain areas where, I know what the figures are in my ward, and there's a lot of people that will be digitally excluded. And I think we need to think about that when we talk about well-being and, we're looking at social deprivation and health inequalities. One of these, this will obviously impact on it and impact on people's ability to fully engage with everything that's going on around them. So I do hope that, due consideration is actually given to that, because if we don't, we end up with more problems than we're actually solving. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for your comments this evening. I suppose they've all really been around the same theme, so I'll just address it in one go, if that's all right. So look, I wholeheartedly agree that digital exclusion is a very serious issue, and as far as I'm aware, there is nothing that this council does without ensuring that there is an available alternative solution for the digitally excluded. We have the Chief Officer nodding at me, so what I've just said is indeed true, confirmed by the Chief Officer. What I will say is that there's never going to be a perfect solution to this issue, and it is a very serious one. So if members are aware of any specific instances where perhaps we might be falling short of the standards that we'd all like to have, because at the end of the day everything should be accessible to everybody, then please do make us aware of it. It's something that we would all, I'm sure, be committed to addressing.
Thank you, Councillor. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Regulation and Safety, set out at item 7I of the agenda. The report concerns the review of taxi licensing fees. Councillor Poole, will you move the report?
Madam Mayor, I move the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Livesey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was a bit concerned to read the Equalities Impact Assessment of this report, which states there are no impacts on ethnic minorities or disabled people. And I'd like to ask whether the Council is aware of the percentage of drivers from ethnic minorities in rugby and the percentage of drivers who may be disabled. And I think that it's quite likely that we're going to have a severe impact on both of those areas.
Councillor Moran.
Thank you. Second time lucky, thank you. Just to echo a comment from my colleague, Councillor Livesey, on equality and diversity, I think in the first instance, the way it's drafted, it indicates that cost recovery is a must, when the legal analysis seems to be that there's a bit more nuances to that. But particularly, there doesn't appear to be any analysis of the ethnic or social standing of taxi drivers, and to how you can assess the impact without that information seems difficult. But more particularly, I wanted to address the point on the rising taxi licensing fees. It's noted that it's 7 years since the review took place, but clearly in that time, Uber and various other apps have transformed how taxis function. We've also had COVID for a number of years, and the licence fee increases are huge. So for a 1 year fee, if my maths is correct, the licence is increasing by 38%. For an operator of a small number of vehicles, of 1 to 4 vehicles, that licence is increasing by 110%. Given the important role that taxis play in making town centres viable and sustainable, that has to be very, very substantial. But the more fundamental point is that in addressing the concern about cost balance, there doesn't appear to be any assessment of the cost side. So we're looking at increasing the licensing to offset costs, but there doesn't appear to be anything in the report where costs mitigation has taken place. So it seems we're only looking at one side of the equation there. And equally on that, there's no forecasts, no assessment of what happens if a number of taxi drivers decide, do you know what, 100% rise, I'm off, I'll do something else, I might go to Uber. So if the number of taxi drivers declines significantly, then that clearly will affect the equation. But yeah, recognising that we're clearly in a very difficult economic climate, cost pressures are very significant, but in this instance, there seems to be an undue impact on taxi drivers.
Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'll address Ms Livesey. From what I understand, there's only one white male driver driving our taxis at the moment. I will confirm that for you in writing. I don't think you need to teach to me about ethnic equality and diversity, as I'm chair of it. Thank you. The report itself, Mr Moran, is proposed taxi fees, which was agreed by this council in April. You weren't a councillor then. Following a full council approval on the 26th of April 22, the proposed fees were subject to a consultation. The consultation responses are attached in the report. To ensure appropriate cost recovery is being achieved, adoption of the fees is necessary. The proposed taxi fees to be approved for adoption taking effect from August the 1st this year, 2022. I move the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Executive Director set out at item 7J of the agenda. The report concerns an urgent decision taken under delegated powers with regard to the making of Wolvie Neighbourhood Development Plan. Councillor Picker, will you move the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I will move the report and reserve my right to speak.
Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Tony Gillies.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's apparent to me that all our parishes ought to be building up to create a neighbourhood plan. It's very, very useful for their communities. It's able to develop them in a positive way where the community come together. So I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Councillor Picker.
Councillor Gillius has just stolen my lines. So the report, as written, concerns an urgent decision that needed to be made due to the time frame between the referendum on the Wolvie Neighbourhood Plan and this meeting of Council. Therefore, an urgent decision was required. However, I would wholeheartedly support any future neighbourhood plans, as they are a great way for local communities to enable and encourage development in the way that they want to. And I have had some conversations with our Chief Officer about how we can improve that process, so any future neighbourhood plans will be warmly welcomed.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Regulation and Safety, set out at item 7K of the agenda. The report concerns a review of public space protection orders. Councillor Poole, will you move the report?
Madam Mayor, I'll move the report and reserve my right to speak.
Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Councillor New.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A place on record, I'm not against public space protection orders. I just have a concern about some of the enforcement action that's been carried out in the Paddocks ward with residents who have been walking their dogs and not been given an opportunity to put the dogs on a lead, not being aware because there hasn't been proper signage in the ward, and therefore had £100 fines been issued to them. Some people have been in genuine hardship due to these fines, even though they've paid them within a reasonable time. There's been some real issues and some really serious concerns about people having to pay fines and not having enough money for food. I just feel that if we are issuing enforcement, the community wardens, whoever are patrolling the area, should look at giving the people a warning first. Then if they refuse or don't follow the instructions by the officer, which is said in the report, they need to comply with the direction given by an authorised officer. If people refuse to comply, fair enough, then issue a fine. But some people weren't even given the option and there wasn't proper signage. People weren't aware. And I think we need to be very, very careful that we're not making people have genuine hardship, especially during these situations now, due to finding people without giving them a fair chance to put themselves, rectify the situation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Srivastava.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few comments from the residents on the Newboard ward who live near Quarry. They are quite pleased with the existing protecting order. And some of them have said it had made a really tremendous difference to their residents. Now, there are some antisocial behavior problem still goes on. Obviously, some people throw litter in the water, and some of the drug issues are there. But this extension is highly welcomed. Thanks.
Any other speakers? Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Mrs New, your comments have been taken on board. Thank you, and I'll arrange to have our ward to go out there. And I was out with your leader a couple of months ago. Re-signs, hopefully they've been put in place, and if not, they will be, I can assure you. And Ramesh, sorry, Councillor Srivastava, I do apologise. Thank you for your comments. They are appreciated. Madam Mayor, public space protection orders, often called PSPOs, were introduced in 2014 under the Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act. They sit amongst a broad range of powers and tools to help tackle antisocial behaviour and are aimed at ensuring public spaces can be enjoyed by all our communities. They are not about stopping responsible use of the nighttime economy or preventing young people from seeing their friends, but they do provide councils with another tool to help deal with persistent issues that are damaging our communities. Our current PSPOs are due for renewal in September 2022. Following an approved emergency extension period, a statutory and public consultation was undertaken to gather the views and the opinions, the results of which are provided within the report appendices. The report proposes Council consider a 3-year renewal of the current PSPOs as created to continue and to address matters of antisocial behaviour, which are defined that anything can cause harassment, nuisance or annoyance that affect the borough residents. I remove the report, Madam Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Regulation and Safety, set out at item 7K of the agenda. Oh, sorry, we've just done that one, sorry. 7L of the agenda for Chief Officer Legal and Governance. The report concerns proposed additional resources for the Council's Electoral Services team. Councillor Miss Robbins, will you move the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I so move.
Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I mean, we all support this report as a group, and I absolutely understand why we will need all those additional resources. So I'm not speaking against it, but I have to say, you know, all this additional requirements that's coming to us all for next year in terms of voting and the money that's going to be spent on it, not just in this council, but councils right around the council. And the people that you know, lots, and your government knows, the people that are going to be excluded because they haven't got a passport or they haven't got a driving licence, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of those people in our area. And I just despair, to be quite honest. I just think sometimes I do my best to try and engage people in terms of politics, and all we seem to do is make it as difficult as we can for people to vote. In COVID, I knew it was very difficult. We shut down some of the, these sort of voting areas, which we raised as well because they tended to be in certain areas. And I know this is about funding something that officers are going to have to do, so that's why I won't vote against it. But I just really want to let you know that as a group, we're really not happy about it at all. We really should be. I mean, if this isn't an act of discrimination against some of the most socially deprived people in our country, I don't know what is. It's just shocking. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to endorse everything that Councillor O'Rourke said there. If one of our prime motivators is levelling up, this certainly does not support levelling up. There are extremely vulnerable people who will not be able to do what everybody should be able to do in this country. And disenfranchisement, I think, is a really serious issue with this. So to bring it back to the focus of additional resources here, it needs to really focus on that. How are we making that the right of everybody in rugby to vote? How are we going to make that more, can I use the word egalitarian here? I suppose I can. How are we going to make that real? Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Robbins.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the point's been missed here a little. What we are trying to do here is to make sure we have the resources, the human resources, to make the changes that are required of us in the bill that's just been brought about. And that basically is the bill is to stop fraud. It's to stop people voting twice. It's to stop the things which a lot of areas have been accused of in the past of. You can't come back, I'm afraid. I'm sorry about that. It's to ensure that our legal system is correct and above reproach. And that's what we are about. What we need to remember is that this council is part of the electoral system. It's part of our democratic service, and we really do need to ensure that it is tight and that we have exactly what we need in order to have elections that are clear and efficient and legal. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Moran.
If I could just, one question, please. Okay.
Thank you. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. Councillor O'Rourke. The motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Chief Officer for Legal and Governance set out at item 7M of the agenda. The report concerns an update with regard to member and officer working. Councillor Miss Robbins, will you move the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I so move.
Who will second the report?
I will second the report, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Are there any speakers? Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to thank the officers and the Working Party for all the work they've done on this in producing this report, and I hope that it will meet with the approval of this council. Thank you.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. Right, seeing the agenda is this long tonight, I will call for a stretch break now so that we can all reconvene in, should we say, 8 minutes? Does that give you enough time? Thank you. Could we just pause the Section 8. Notices of motion pursuant to Standing Order 11. Set out at item 8 of the agenda are 5 notices of motion. In accordance with Council standing orders, I consider that the motion set out at item 8A of the agenda should be referred to Scrutiny Committee. The proposers and seconders only have the right to speak, and there will be no discussion on this motion. Councillor Miss Livesey, will you please move the motion set out at item 8A of the agenda, notice of which has been given under Standing Order 11?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I so move the motion.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Miss Livesey, do you wish to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Councillor O'Rourke, do you wish to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
The motion now stands referred to Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Livesey, would you like to take the floor?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been widely reported that ambulance services across the country are struggling to cope with increased demand and the impact of COVID on staff numbers. On the 26th of May, Mark Doherty, Director of Nursing at West Midlands Ambulance Service, was quoted in the Times newspaper saying that patients are dying every day from avoidable causes created by ambulance delays. He went on to predict that the West Midlands Ambulance Service would collapse on or about the 17th of August, just 1 month away. Figures publicly available show that in June, West Midlands Ambulance Service failed to meet every single KPI. Average response times for a Category 1 incident was 9 minutes 20 seconds against a target of 7 minutes. For a Category 2 incident, it was 52 minutes 11 seconds against a target of 18 minutes. Last year, I organised a petition calling for West Midlands Ambulance Service not to remove the last ambulance in Rugby. It turned out to be the best performing petition on the 38 Degrees site that month, and it was also raised in Parliament by our MP. It garnered over 5,000 signatures. Despite this, it was ignored by West Midlands Ambulance Service. They didn't even acknowledge its receipt, and they went ahead and removed the ambulance anyway. There are 2 public governors on the board of West Midlands Ambulance Service whose remit is to represent the interests of the public in Coventry and Warwickshire. I'm sorry to say they both ignored the petition too. I should say at this point there is another petition currently live on change.org, and I would urge everybody here who hasn't already signed it to do so. Now Mark Doherty is telling us that they won't be able to provide a service after the 17th of August, and more people will die prematurely from avoidable causes. So I'm very pleased to see this has been recommended to go straight to scrutiny, and Madam Mayor, I so move.
Councillor Mrs O'Rourke, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we all know the ambulance services are experiencing unprecedented levels of demand, and they show no signs of abating, I have to say. And also I have to say, this is not solely an ambulance issue. It's a whole system issue in terms of how we actually deal with it going forward. Last year, there was a 60% increase in 999 calls to the ambulance service. 60%. Calls for the most serious conditions, such as cardiac arrest, rose by 51%. In a recent parliamentary debate, which some of you might have seen, it was just a couple of weeks ago, there was a case cited actually in the West Midlands ambulance, where one patient waited 27 hours for an ambulance, and that was actually debated recently in Parliament. We are at a time when the NHS is facing unprecedented demand, and obviously the ambulance service now is having to absorb some of that extra demand. So I think we all know it. We're hearing the stories. There's lots of parts to this. I know we've had Mark here before to talk to us about it, but what we haven't had, and I think this notice of motion will deliver for us, we haven't had a structured approach in terms of how we go forward. We've talked about it, and it could be this, it might be that, but I think it's almost like having KPIs. I think we need to pin them down, the system, the ICU, the ICSs, the clinical commissioning groups, the acute hospitals. They've all got their part to play in this, but ultimately the Secretary of State has responsibility for all of these to make sure that they are being delivered in a timely way. And what I can't understand is they used to be monitored, all these things, in a really strict way, and that seems to just all gone by the board. The fact is that we do need, it's our job, we are here to represent people in our communities, a lot of them quite vulnerable, desperate sometimes to actually access services. We know there's issues around accessing primary care as well. It's our duty to do everything we can to make the people in the system work with us, and we need to demand what plans are going to be put in place to make sure that the people of Rugby are kept safe and well, and that they have ambulances responding to them, particularly if they've had a stroke or a heart attack, very promptly and quickly. Thank you.
The motion now stands referred to Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Sanderson, will you please move the motion set out at item 8B, notice of which has been given under Standing Order 11?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
I call on Councillor Sanderson to speak his motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm doing this off the cuff because my computer has died, as has all my notes. However, you will remember, Madam Mayor, that on the election counting day, you and I did an impromptu inspection of the circular walks and the bandstand as we're nearby residents, and how it was progressing, and how we all felt it was very much a walk fit for the Queen. Whitehall Recreation Ground and the area has a long-standing tradition and connection to the Windsor household, going back to King George, the Queen Mother and the current Queen. And if we could have a lasting legacy in terms of having a walk named after Her Majesty, that was a positive thing for us to do. We'd already done the walk, we've already got the bandstand ready to go, and I'm hoping that it will become what it was once, was one of Rugby's premier musical venues in the borough. What some people may not know, however, it's got quite an important health implication. Many people who I see on my regular visits up to St Cross, to the Might and Support Hub, also use that route. They go to the pulmonary care unit. They go to the diabetic clinic. They go and have blood tests at St Cross. And they all use that route through Whitehall Recreation Ground and up past the leisure centre. So some voluntary social prescribing is already happening, and I would hope members would want to see that develop more as we improve the circular walk, as we link it up to the walk to St Cross, and we make it a popular open promenade for the residents of this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Sanderson has said it all, and I hope the Council supports.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Sanderson. I shall now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. Councillor Roodhouse, will you please move the motion set out at item 8C, notice of which has been given under Standing Order 11?
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Roodhouse to speak his motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe there's a Conservative amendment floating around somewhere. I've seen it on, is it SharePoint? I think it's called. But I don't know if it's been circulated or who's moving it or who's going to second it. Oh, you the mover and you the second. Okay. Okay. Who would have thought that? Which is coming round, and I thank you for circulating that earlier. The point about this motion really is that the 0 to 5 presentation that was given quite clearly shows Rugby is one of the worst performing areas around this particular element. And I would hope that actually that presentation on the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment could be presented to the whole council so they get a full picture actually of what the town and the borough is looking like in relation to Warwickshire and to the England average. We are not performing well. In fact, we're performing poorly. And in fact, this town has performed poorly in this area for a long time. And the reason for the motion was to bring that forward. I was asked to change it before bringing it forward, but I said no because I wanted to make a particular point around leadership, which is what the motion has done, and hence why it arrived here. And also hence my question about local strategic partnerships at the beginning of the meeting, because this particular work is about partnership working. It cannot be done alone. And the District Council network is quite clear about place-based working and place-based health working along with other organisations. And as a duty, as a borough council, we have a duty to the health and well-being of our residents, our families and our children at the same time. And that's why it's important that I believe that the LSP should have been up and running now, because that is something where this could land quite nicely and actually help to deliver that partnership working. I do have some slight concerns. I'll accept the amendment, I think. I'm not sure. Go on. You sure? Yeah. All right, okay. Have you got any sweets? No, jelly tots. No, I like wine gums. No, yeah, I mean, the amendment which talks about the Health and Wellbeing Board, and yeah, we'll go off to Councillor Margaret Bell. Luckily, I'll declare an interest. I sit on the Health and Wellbeing Board, so that's all right. You know, goes there. But the problem, you know, the issue is it has to come back here to within us and what we do within our policies. And if I go right to the beginning of the agenda, the corporate deliveries and everything else that we're doing. And again, I repeat, that's where the local strategic partnership is a key body that should be up and running, not just for this issue, which has been ingrained in this town for a long time, but actually for other issues, you know, in crime and disorder and elsewhere. Luckily, Councillor Paul works across the piece on that, but he would remember the LSP and the work that it did for rugby in its day. And I think we need to revive that particular partnership working, because we can't do it alone. It cannot be done alone, and therefore we need to bring everybody together to do that and get them around the table and put the money in the pot. But I would hope, Madam Mayor, that the Executive Director could make that presentation or get it set up for all members to actually see, because I think it's quite damning, actually, and it's been around for a long time. It's the same as self-harm and some of the drug abuse and alcohol abuse that goes on in this area. That's been damning and it's been around too long. But the only way we can resolve some of that is through clear partnership working and the LSP. And that's why I say move. And I accept the amendment.
I call on other speakers. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I'm going to be very brief here, simply to state that, as hopefully is obvious from the amendment, clearly we all share the concerns which are set out in this notice of motion. It's simply on the basis that the most direct control over the likely solutions is with the County Council, so we feel it's more appropriate to ask them to investigate and provide the solution. However, I do agree with Councillor Roodhouse's comments that we as a Borough Council need to see the information he's speaking about. But I'm glad he has accepted the amendment and interpreted it in the friendly nature which was our intention, and got a sweet as well. So that's all I have to say.
Councillor Roodhouse, would you like to... You have a right of reply. Would you like to... Oh, Councillor New, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I echo the sentiments from Councillor Roodhouse. Obviously, we have a duty of care to our residents, and especially the most vulnerable of 0 to 5. So I'm very, very concerned, and everybody needs to see this report, because it's very alarming that some of these are actually deliberate injuries. And as we've heard from our colleagues about ambulance arrival times, you know, this is a very concerning report, and I think we really do need to look at scrutiny on this at some point, because children at 0 to 5 with burns and scalds, drowning, strangulation, suffocating. You know, is it a parental issue? Do we need more education? Do we need more support for families? So we really do need to look closely at this and see what we can do, because we do have a duty to look after it. We've got the highest percentage, a high percentage of 7.2 of our population are the 0 to 5. So we do need to protect them and see whatever we can do as a council to support this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, with the sweet. Sorry about that. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence, with the sweet. It is an important issue. I think we would all agree that. And I think if you also match this against the areas of the safeguarding boards, actually neglect is actually increasing month on month. And that's quite worrying, really, if you think about that, about what houses are like where you live and families, and it's the point Councillor New was making. And this is not just where you think of, you know, the real deprived areas of rugby. This is actually starting to work across, you know, the whole spectrum of families as the cost of living and everything else is coming on. And it is quite concerning that that neglect is then turning into abuse, and then we're getting into some spiralling into some other particular issues as well. And that's why the figures here, which have been ingrained around this town for this time, you know, need to be, and we need to tackle that as well. So, you know, there's no doubt when it comes to the Health and Wellbeing Board, it will be raised there as well. But I just hope, more than hope actually, we cannot let this escape, Because if we're really serious about the corporate objectives and about the health and well-being of our residents and our families who live here, which we have a duty to do, actually, you know, it states it, that's something we have to keep coming back to and trying the best to resolve. Thank you.
I shall now put the motion to vote, subject to the amendment made thereon. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. Councillor Shrivastava, will you please move the motion set out at item 8D, notice of which has been given under Standing Order 11?
I propose.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
I call on Councillor Shrivastava to speak his motion.
Thank you, Madam. Councillors, Madam Mayor, Councillors. Social care is about providing physical, emotional, and social support to help people live their lives for various reasons and different stages in their lives. Some people need support to develop and maintain their independence, dignity, and control. New survey findings from ADAS, Association of Directors of Adult Social Services, indicate that more than 500,000 people are now waiting for an adult social care assessment, for care or a direct payment to begin, or for a review of their cares. ADAS says the longer people wait for an assessment, the higher the risk that their condition will deteriorate. They will become mentally or physically unwell. They will suffer a fall or continue to suffer unsupported, unreported, or concealed abuse or neglect. For some, social care enables individuals to live normal lives and carry out tasks they otherwise would not be able to do. Whether it is emotional support, physical support, or social support, social care can completely change the lives of individuals and often offer them experiences they would not otherwise have. Caroline Abrahams, charity director of Age UK, called the figures of people waiting for care grim reading, and added, behind them are really older and disabled people whose lives are being sadly diminished by lack of essential support. We are facing a very harsh reality of preventive and communicative services being pulled back, where will have profound consequences on the quality of life for disabled people and their families. Not only are people waiting longer for care assessment, reviews, care packages, and personal budgets, but family cares are having to shoulder their responsibility and are being asked to take paid or unpaid leave from work where care and support are not available for their family members. Last few years have been very difficult for no number of families to access the services and to get appropriate help they need. I had contact with few families in Rugby who were struggling to look after their disabled family members. The Office of National Statistics report that 2027 there will be 2.2 million more aged 65 and over compared to 2017, and need for social will increase. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer are questioning LGBTQ+. Young people in social care have largely been overlooked in research, practice and policy. They are more likely to be placed in out-of-home care settings, have longer duration in care, and are less satisfied with their care experiences than their non-LGBTQ+ peers. The survey mentioned above highlights the national picture. Objective of the motion is to understand the situation in rugby, to understand the cause of delay in assessment process, to assist people in need to reach a satisfactory outcome. Hope the motion will have your support. Thank you for listening.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Lowe. Councillor Brown, do you want to go ahead? I'm so sorry.
Yes, I do want to, if that's okay. I actually think some members in here are on springs because I've never seen people stand up so quickly. You're one, and you're pretty quick as well, Seb, too. But thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm really pleased to second this motion from Councillor Shivers-Driver. And it's really important, I think, for us to have a position statement here. It's the support that we give to our individual residents within this context that we need to understand. We signpost, we advise, and support a broad spectrum of issues, and we have to know the situations that individuals and families are facing as they wait for social care assessments. And we know, Councillor said, that nationally 500,000 adults are waiting for assessments. 65,000 of those have been waiting for longer than 6 months. That's an incredibly long time. It's some of them much longer, actually. The problem lies mostly with workforce recruitment and retention. It's a common theme through health, through social care, through education. And demand is outstripping supply in both assessment and provision. Care England's Executive Director, Martin Green, says the adult social care sector will snap under the pressure to meet growing public need. Our elderly, sick and disabled residents in Rugby are really at the sharp end of this. We've got bed blocking, you know all about this, delays in direct payment and reduced care. And they all affect Rugby's elderly and disabled citizens right now, right at this minute. So how many of our residents are waiting? Let's get this position statement. How many are unable to access the support they require even after assessment because there's no one there to provide it? How many can't return home from hospital? Our own corporate strategy states residents should be able to live healthy, independent lives. This is a really important bit. With the most vulnerable protected. The speed at which care assessments are currently being made is unacceptable. Let's find how relevant that is to our citizens in Rugby. It's that final part of the jigsaw that informs us really what we're dealing with day by day so that we can prioritise and work with people. So I'm really pleased to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Well, he's going to speak in a bit, isn't he? You want to see what I'm going to say, I suppose. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the motion, there's no doubt about that. And I think we all are all aware of the growing older, frailer population that is in front of us. we now know more 100-year-olds than we did, sort of 10 years ago, didn't we? That age and that population is growing all the time, and the pressures are building all the time, as Councillor Brown has indicated. And there's a couple of points, really. The survey that's carried out, actually Warwickshire County Council doesn't take any part in it at all, because it thinks it's a flawed survey. I'm not, if you want to follow that and have a chat later, you can. But it doesn't take part of it. So its numbers for this county are not in that figure, because the assistant directors of social services take that figure from elsewhere. And actually each county social care, they count slightly differently, and they have different ways of counting those particular assessments and what they're doing in relation to that. So whilst it's a national figure, I think that needs to be stated as well. The point about how long it takes is that each one of us in this room is a different individual with different needs and different particular elements. Therefore, your assessment actually can take slightly longer than another assessment. Councillor Lowe may need 6 months, I may only need a couple of weeks. Who knows? But when we're both sort of 95 in an old folks' home, throwing stuff at each other. The serious point is that's the issue at hand, isn't it? You make the correct point about staffing and the rest of it and resources for that, and that is crucial, because the system is about to fall over. And what really does wind me up is, the NHS is wonderful. I'm really glad we've got it, but poor old bloody social services and social workers get it in the neck. And care, the workers in care homes and the rest of it who are doing the work that they have to do and doing double shifts, starting at 7 and finishing at 10 at night. What do they get? Sweet lafay sometimes, really. I'm sorry to swear, but it's true.
Oh,
I'll apologise.
No. I was going to say, is there a question behind this?
The point really, because I'm replying to the motion in front of us, really. It's not really a question. It is around that I hear what's being said across here, but actually I think it's a more, I don't think you'll get the precise answer that you want from that letter actually going in there asking about the assessments, because I know from the head of that service, each one is very different. So it may be that, again, it needs to be dug out in a scrutiny meeting or something to come back together. But, it's a starting point, and we'll support it. But I have to make the point that Warwickshire County Council does not take any part in this survey at all.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the real point here is, and it's just so awful, for years and years and years we've talked about having an integrated healthcare system, social care. I think as long as I've been, at least 30 years we've been talking about it. And I certainly know when I was sort of chair of adult health and social care at county, there was the Better Care Fund. It was supposed to... the irony of all of this is we've still got a medical model that's reactive instead of preventing people getting ill in the first place. So much money, and I speak like this even though I work in the acute sector, is ploughed into the acute sector. And the money that we're wasting, because people should have been supported well in their home, looked after in their home, to stop them having to go into hospital in the first place. I think on average it costs about £3,500 a week to keep someone in hospital without any additional treatments. And I think it's about £750 a week to keep them in adult social care settings, or even less, a lot less if they're receiving social care in their home. So it's a no-brainer really, and I really can't understand why we've never made any progress on it at all. So
Thank you, Councillor
we need
O'Rourke.
to do this.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to confirm that I'm more than happy to write as you've requested. I suppose there's a number of very good points been made over the course of this debate, and I think certainly the point around those working in social care and the way they need support equal to that provided those working in the NHS is a good one. Now, this is not my area of expertise, but my understanding is that part of the reason for the development of the ICS system, which we are now seeing rolled out, is to address precisely that need. But I think certainly we do, as borough councillors, need to make sure that we are holding them to account in doing so. But yes, more than happy to write the letter. I suppose my only brief final comments would be, given that Councillor Brown is herself a county councillor, I'm not sure why she needs me to write this letter for her, but I'm happy to do so. And also, perhaps more importantly, I'm not sure you needed to table this as a motion. If you just phoned me and asked me to do this, I would have done. But nonetheless, happy to support it.
Councillor Shrivastava, you have a right to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Woodhouse, for your comments. I fully understand. We are after information, and we have got only national picture. We want to know the things, how things are going in rugby. So we all here, I have no doubt here, for care of the people. And that's what we are after. I hope the information will help all of us to help the rugby to get better.
Thank you, Councillor. I shall now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. Councillor Moran, will you please move the motion set out at item 8E, notice of which has been given under Standing Order 11?
I will.
Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor.
I call on Councillor Moran to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So our motion is to support town centre businesses by immediately removing town centre parking charges for a period of 1 year with immediate effect, to engage also with officers and businesses with a view to understanding a more intelligent approach with regards to opening hours, for example, of the John Barford car park, to support the nighttime economy. I wish to start by making really clear that I understand the removal of RBC parking charges in isolation is not the panacea for all the ills facing town centre businesses. I recognise it comes at a cost when council budgets are under huge pressure. We also recognise that out of the various key sectors here, retail, for example, has had its whole horizons changed by the internet. But once this glorious summer has passed, we're likely to face a horrific cold winter of economic challenges, the likes of which this town centre and town centre businesses have never faced before. Therefore, alongside doing something about rugby first, which I understand we'll discuss later, and something more pronounced and focused in regard to events and marketing, announcing that Rugby Borough Council stands full square with our town centre operators would be a really profound message that we're in this together. In recent months, I've spoken with numerous owners and managers in the town centre. One business owner who, of more than 20 years in rugby, told me that this is the hardest period he's ever had. And it's impacting him not just financially, but his whole mental health and well-being. I've also, through my work, discussed rugby with the regional head of a national retailer who is in the process of moving out of the town centre. And in their short words, they don't see the point of our town centre. The issue of parking was raised in our town centre business support working party. We were told that a report existed that proved parking wasn't a factor. It transpires that isn't the case, and I want to be clear, that's not a criticism, and I take it at face value. There was a mistake in the context of what was a very useful and a very collaborative discussion. And equally, the response from the senior officer to my question was detailed, and the intentions are clearly very genuine. But what's needed now is a dramatic impact. And so I ask, please, that we work together with town centre occupiers in this way for a more considered management approach to town centre parking. I know that Warwickshire County Council clearly control a number of parking spaces, but this is the first step in a positive direction. We must show that we're on the side and make an investment of this nature in this initiative, just as any commercial property landlord or owner would do, faced with such a declining town centre. Investment is hard at these times particularly, but we really cannot wait until a review down the line this year. And by that time, we'll have lost several key remaining occupiers, and the rot will have further set in. Thank you.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When we were looking at this item, I mean, particularly with the nighttime economy, it's become quite obvious to me, because we do go to the theatre and to different places, that's a real issue in terms of finding parking on those nights when the theatre's on and people are going in and using that independent area quite a lot. So it would be really, really positive to sort of look at this in terms of there was an opportunity to sort of extend the hours. And I have spoken to businesses and they feel the same. The nighttime economy, it would be really useful. It just seems such a crying shame that the car parks sort of shut early at night and people haven't got places to park, and then we see them parking on the pedestrian areas going down past the new beautiful little Italian restaurant that's opened in the town, where there could be more seating outside and people are parking their cars. And it's the same up in the High Street and Sheep Street. So I think we do need to make, you know, more of that space that we've got in the evenings to support the nighttime economy. With regard to the sort of, you know, the stopping of sort of charges straight away, I've done a little bit of research, and I've had a little bit of a look around at what's happened elsewhere. And there are people that aren't too far from us, and I'm not going to name them all because I'm not about that, but if you look yourself, there are quite a few councils now that have gone down that route, and particularly since COVID, of removing car parking charges from council car parks. And a lot of them as well have gone on working very closely with businesses to do detailed surveys about how that affected their footfall, how that affected their income. And every single one of those that I've looked at, and I've looked at about 8 now, they were always positive, they were not negative, and the businesses could demonstrate it was making a big difference to their businesses. Because people, you know, particularly the length of it as well, because people sort of like, if they, you know, my husband's a good example. If he can't find a parking space straight away, he's gone. So I think, you know, sort of having good so it's good car parking as well. It's not just about sort of, you know, the car parking that we got. We do need to think about this. I know lots of the councils as well, but we couldn't do it in this town. They actually named streets where people can park free of charge, but unfortunately we've got no free streets because it's all resident parking now in our town. So they do that in Coventry and other places. They do a bit of it in Nuneaton. Nuneaton are doing free car parking, Savin are doing free car parking. And as I say, you can look online and you look at all the councils that are proactively supporting their businesses who are really struggling at the moment, and the businesses are delighted to be supported in this way, and there's strong evidence out there because they've surveyed the business. You know, it's something perhaps Rugby First could do if we did something like this. If you supported this notice of motion, they could survey the businesses to get a measured outcome in terms of how it's making a difference. What I do know is if we do nothing and we continue to lose business, we will continue to lose business rates. So, you know, sometimes you have to invest a bit to accumulate. Thank you.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have sympathy with, you know, we have sympathy with the motion that's in front of us, but can't support it. And it's quite simple, really, that in the first paragraph you have the words immediately. Now, I don't know what you're basing the facts and figures and evidence on. You know, Councillor O'Rourke has suddenly come out with this, you know, elsewhere and this, that and the other, that they're doing it and the rest of it. You know, there's nothing being presented to me around that. The other element about the immediately, and I'm looking at our Chief Officer for Finance and Performance at this point in time, is I'm unclear as to exactly what the financial impact is. The medium-term financial plan, you know, we do run a very tight budget here, don't we, Councillor Lowe and Councillor Robbins? You know, and my understanding is, you know, we're probably talking up to the region of about £500,000. That's a lot of money for this local authority to have. Is it more? No doubt you'll clarify, but you know, that's my understanding. And you know, for us to make a decision tonight at full council on the words immediately, I think is not quite right. I think there'll be the sympathy in the chamber for what you're trying to progress in some shape or form. I'm unclear when the car parking strategy is coming forward. I think there is one coming forward, isn't there? At some stage. Oh, the executive director's mouthing something to a portfolio holder. But it's in the ether, isn't it? It is coming, and it's coming on down the line. So therefore, you know, there's something about actually building and bolting those together. Because certainly the John Barford element of point 2 is yeah, that I think that should be looked at. I know there was issues about crime and disorder and so on and so forth, and antisocial behaviour, but are there options that could be done around that actually I think are worthwhile exploring? You know, so perhaps if we had a separate vote, mind you, I'm going to a Lib Dem conference now, the separate votes on point, that sounds like us a lot. But point 1 actually, where you're putting the words in immediately, I think to a certain extent just kill it dead, which I'm a bit sad about really, because it you know, I think, as I say, it's that financial hit, which is straight in, which is not good financial management, I don't think, to do that at this point in time. And I think we need to see that analysis and also the evidence behind that with what the financial impact would be going forward. And certainly over Christmas and other periods of time, this council has done it, and it's got evidence in over those periods of time. So it'd be for those reasons at this point in time, yeah, can't support it, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Eccleston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My immediate reaction to this when I saw it was it's quite a U-turn by the group opposite, because a year ago my recollection is that they were looking to spend over or proposing to spend over £1 million on improving the environment in the town centre. Now they're trying to encourage more vehicles into the town centre, which brings with it pollution and all the other issues. The issue of, and Councillor Moran actually mentioned increasing the number of taxis into the town centre earlier on this evening. Just addressing the issue that was mentioned by Councillor O'Rourke. I also have done my research for a number of councils, and those councils that I researched actually say quite the opposite to what you've come up with recently. And they say that the removal of these parking charges actually encourages workers in the shops to park within spaces occupied by customers, so actually reduces the overall footfall into the town centre. Also, I'm pleased to hear that Councillor Moran did mention having done a cost analysis. That was really good. However, again, you cannot view the removal of parking charges completely in isolation. There are other factors that actually affect people driving into town centres. And parking, yes, parking is an issue. Cost of parking is sometimes an issue, but the cost of parking in Rugby, by comparison with other areas, is relatively cheap. And I believe that, you know, overall, we need to take into consideration those other factors. And I agree with Councillor Roothouse, we need to do more research on this. And I also agree the word immediate is not acceptable. And the other issue, and the final issue, is around the John Barford car park. There are security issues around there. There has been issues of drug dealing around there, which is why the security implications of that car park will have to be raised, and that will ultimately have a cost to this council via Rugby First, I guess. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Moran and Councillor O'Rourke for tabling this motion. So on the basis it's been rather a long night, I will keep this fairly brief and simply direct members to a number of key facts on one of the two requests in this motion. But before I do that, I will speak briefly about the other one, the extension of the opening hours of the John Barford car park. I'm happy to say this is something that's already been considered as part of the car parking strategy, and if you'd like to discuss that in more detail, more than happy to do so. So, turning to the motion on town centre parking more broadly, as I said, there are a number of key facts which I would like to set out very clearly to members. Fact number 1, what is proposed here has already been tried for several years at considerable cost to this council and was brought to an end in the most recent round of budgets with no attempt by the Labour group to amend that part of the budget because of an extensive suite of clear documentary evidence which showed it had made no difference to town centre footfall. Yep. I'm more than happy to reshare this evidence with anyone who wants to see it. Fact number 2, the cost of town centre car parking for 3 hours is £1. Are we really suggesting that people are failing to visit our town centre to save themselves £1. It is my long-held belief that it is the inconvenience of needing an actual physical pound coin in this increasingly cashless world that is more likely to be a substantial barrier to visiting the town centre rather than the cost itself. And to that end, I'm pleased to report that cashless parking is now available in the town centre. Fact number 3, the cost of what is proposed has been estimated by our officers at £700,000. This is a huge sum at a time when we have savings targets to achieve. And on the basis that this council adopted a balanced budget earlier this year, I am not clear how the Labour group would intend to fund this largesse. And I cannot see any legal means by which this can be funded other than through service cuts and compulsory redundancy. So the key question therefore has to be, what would you like this council to stop doing and who would you like to sack in order to fund this? Fact number 4, quite rightly, the Labour group has been very vocal on the subject of air quality in the town centre. And whilst I hope we all believe in freedom of choice and would never seek to prevent people from driving into the town centre, I surely cannot be the only person who sees something of a disconnect between the people who have the loudest voices on the issue of air quality in the town centre now asking for a £700,000 taxpayer-funded subsidy explicitly designed to bring more cars into the most congested part of the borough. So, Madam Mayor, on the basis that we know for a fact this won't work, we've already provided what we anticipate will be a much more effective solution to the issue it purports to address, that it isn't costed, that it isn't affordable, and that it is inconsistent with the environmental commitments that we all support, the Conservative group will not be supporting this measure.
Councillor New.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's very interesting to hear about the congestion to the town when we've just voted for a drive-through McDonald's. But we won't go down that route. I do sympathise with this, and I understand there's costs, and we do manage to reduce parking charges at times, key times like Christmas, where we do have free parking. I do have a concern that people would probably park there all day, but I do think that we need to do more, and I think the issue isn't just about the parking and the pound charges. It's the fact we're not attracting key anchor stores to our town, and this comes down to Rugby First, which we'll probably discuss at some other point. We're not getting the shops there that are attracting people into town. This is the biggest issue. If we had the shops there to attract people, we would get the footfall, and we'd get people coming into town either by bus or by car or by foot, whatever. And we do need to probably encourage more cycling into the town as well and have more cycle racks and things and make it more user-friendly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Picker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I won't repeat everything that Councillor Lowe has said this evening, but I would like to sort of touch on what I perceive to be a bit of a disconnect between the two speeches from Councillor Moran and Councillor Miss O'Rourke. Because Councillor Miss O'Rourke referred to the nighttime economy and encouraging the nighttime economy and enabling that, and I do think we can look again at the John Barford car park. More than happy to take that forward alongside Councillors Lowe and Poole. But of course, during the evenings, the car parking is already free. So there's no additional... Well, sorry, our car parks are already free. I do recall coming across someone who complained to Borough Council about being charged for the Asda car park, which was an unfortunate miscommunication. So I don't think that encouraging or abolishing car parking charges during the daytime is going to enable the nighttime economy to flourish. I think there are interventions we can look at. But in terms of investment in the town centre, we've spent nearly 2 hours, or just over 2 hours now, and a significant chunk of our discussions have been around investment in the town centre. I don't think there can be any question that this authority and this administration is wanting to invest and enable in town centre. What I would say is that any investment needs to be strategic, it needs to be targeted, and it needs to achieve what we want it to achieve. As we've already discussed, there is no evidence that this will actually enable that. So for £700,000, I can't support that, and certainly not immediately.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to continue. I know we've spoke a lot tonight about the events groups as well, the different working groups. And just to echo what Councillor Robbins said earlier about it was quite interesting having some of the businesses involved. And actually, since then, I've met with some of those businesses. They actually invited us on a tour of Rugby School and chatting to the local businesses. They're actually looking at plans. They don't see parking as the issue. They don't see the charges as the issue. And this is all the businesses I was talking to. They're actually talking about putting in kind of a bit like Asda used to do with the refund. Yeah. But what they're actually talking about is if not just one shop, so you can pay your £1, you get your £1 back. They could go in 5 shops or more and all be part of the same scheme. So actually for a resident, they would see that as I've paid £1, I've got £5 back. And for the shops, they'll obviously get that business into their shops just by offering a £1 discount. So, yeah, so I'm completely in agreement. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward, and great contribution for your maiden speech. Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the leader's been looking over my shoulder and stole half my notes. So I thank him for that. I've only got one note left. That's why you wanted to. Thank you. Councillor Moran, free parking is not free. It's not free at all. Not only do we lose the income to this borough, to this council, to help us pay for our businesses, but I think you forgot to mention we have to maintain those car parks, as well as look after them. White lines, we have to pay for the machines, we have to pay for the wardens that go around and inspect it and look after it. So I think you better get your facts straight before you put another motion in.
Councillor, you have a right to reply.
I'd love to. Thank you. Thank you for the very polite welcome. In response to Councillor Reedhouse, yes, as a first motion, I take immediately from a commercial background to as soon as practically possible. I'll know for next time. In relation to, I guess, the fundamental point, when we had the very good town centre business working group, I did follow it up and I asked for research. I did try and seek to clarify that information. It was not forthcoming. Also, within the responses I had from officers, a cost was mentioned. It wasn't £700,000. It was £120,000. So I can only discuss the information that I have in front of me. But I'm delighted we're discussing these issues because it is so important that a major gesture is made when retailers, when businesses, not just retailers, when leisure operators, when bar owners are facing what will be the most horrendous 12 to 18 months of their business lives. So absolutely there's a cost. There's a cost in everything in life, clearly. But there would not be a commercial owner, investor, who owns the multiple side of the town centre with the assets as they are, who would not invest something to make that effort back. With regards to air quality, clearly a balanced approach is needed in every walk of life. I don't quite understand the reference to taxis. That's a separate issue which is going to decimate an important sector of the local economy. But we believe, and we, having discussed this matter with many, many local businesses, the feedback was very, very positive that town centre parking is removed. It is a proven success in many, many other towns. It's also quite missing the point to talk just about, I know there's a reference to Daventry. Daventry Council owns various business properties in the town. There is an indirect link towards rates, but more importantly, the town centre isn't just financial. It's the heart of the community. And so we can make all these investments, got tremendous growth in various areas, but if our town centre is quite frankly following an American model of a bombed out centre, it's something that needs urgent addressing. So Reviews are great. They
Sorry,
need to happen
Councillor
quickly.
Moran, I may just
and
ask you
wasn't
to
actually.
retract
Thanks.
those words, given the current climate. Are we now at the end of that debate? I shall now put the motion to vote. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. The motion is defeated. Moving on to item 9, correspondence. Is there any correspondence, Executive Director?
There is none, Madam Mayor.
Common Seal. I move that the Common Seal be affixed to the various orders, deed and documents referred to in the agenda. Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. The next section 11 is the motion to exclude the public under section 100A(4) of Local Government Act 1972. Under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of information defined in paragraphs 1, 2 and 3 of Schedule 12A of the Act. I so move. Who will second the motion?
I will, Madam Mayor.
Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. The motion is carried. That includes the public part of the meeting. May I ask the IT